is going on, YouTube? What is going on, Kansas City? And what is going on, everybody? And welcome to the Beat of KC. Ladies and gentlemen, we are already heading into week 6. This is absolutely incredible. But, unfortunately for the Kansas City Chiefs, we have started out not necessarily the way we were hoping so. We're coming off of a loss of the Buffalo Bills. They really came into Arrowhead. They put it to us, and they really proved why they are probably one of the best, if not the best teams in the AFC. I think that they are, from top to bottom, one of the best teams. Really just how they're developed, how they've been kind of put together, offense, defense. They have depth. I think it's incredible. Obviously, this is going to be a breakdown of week 6, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. So let's start moving towards that. The Kansas City Chiefs will be taking on the Washington football team. They will be heading to Washington. I think this is going to be a pretty good game. I really do. I think it's interesting that we drew, and when I say we, the Kansas City Chiefs drew the NFC East this year. And, there's been some ups, there's been some downs for those teams. The Philadelphia Eagles really put on a great showing against the Kansas City Chiefs. But our defense has struggled. Our offense is turning the football over, to be specific, 11 times, which is absolutely at an astronomical bad rate. Those are things that have to be fixed. And I think personally, this is where it starts to change. I think you're going to start to see some motivation. I'd like to see some, not really some anger, but maybe a little bit more of aggressiveness, maybe an approach where they're showing, hey, we're tired of losing. We're tired of what people are saying in the media, because I know they're paying attention. So we're going to dive in. We're going to break down this week 6 matchup. But before we do, I ask that you guys smash that subscribe button. Smash that subscribe button. Smash that like button. Comment down below. Definitely comment down below. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are. What are your thoughts so far on the season? Holy smokes. I mean, again, we're already heading into week 6. That's absolutely incredible. We're going to be getting some bye weeks here before long. Actually, I think there's some bye weeks potentially this week. So, there's a lot that's already going on within the NFL season. Some teams are starting to separate themselves. So let me know in the comment section what you guys are doing, how your fantasy teams are doing, how your NFL team is doing. So now we're going to dive in. Let's talk about this. I'm going to start talking a little bit about the Washington football team first, kind of what they present against the Kansas City Chiefs. So obviously, Taylor Heineke is taking over at quarterback. He's really been a special entity this year. When it comes to touchdowns and interceptions, they're starting to a little bit separate themselves. He's thrown 8 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. But what I think he's doing is, as the season is going, I think we're starting to see a little bit of confidence. Fitzpatrick goes down with a hip injury, and that's just unfortunate. Taylor, again, is then given the opportunity to prove himself. So far to this point, he's attempted 159 passes, 102 completions for a 64.2% completion rate with a 1,208 yards, averaging 7.6. I think that's pretty solid. He has been sacked 5 times. His overall rating is 90.9. Now, we're aware of kind of their running backs and what they have. I was a big fan of J.D. Mckissick last year. I actually had him in fantasy. I think he provides kind of that ability, almost like a Jerick McKinnon for what the Kansas City Chiefs have. He has the ability to run the football if need be, but he's a lot of that passing option, that dump off, kind of like the ability to even line up in a slot if need be too. So J.D. Mckissick so far has been doing okay for, not really, I guess not the greatest for Washington, because Antonio Gibson just has kind of been taking over from a running back perspective. So in 5 games so far, Antonio Gibson has attempted 79 rushes for 313 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's averaging 62.6 yards per game. He's had 2 fumbles, only lost 1 of those, but is averaging 4.0 yards per attempt. Probably would like to see a little bit more of an increase in that. It'll be interesting to see what approach this team takes against the Kansas City Chiefs. There for a long time, we were struggling against the run. We faced some of the best running teams in the NFL, and we just could not stop them. Roles have kind of reversed in the teams that we've played. They've been a lot more pass heavy. Like I said, we just faced Josh Allen. We faced Justin Herbert, both very good throwing quarterbacks. As they've gotten a little bit older, have played more. This is obviously Herbert's second year. He's matured a lot as far as not making as many mistakes. So how the Washington football team approaches the Kansas City Chiefs will be interesting. Now, Taylor Heineke has actually rushed and attempted 25 rushes for 127 yards. He does have one touchdown, and he does get out and run. So he's averaging 25.4. So if pressure does get applied, which is very limited for the Kansas City Chiefs, but if that were to happen, then Taylor can have, and he has the ability to get out and kind of sprint out there. So the receiving end. Now, this is where, I think in all honesty, the Washington football team has something going here. I like what they're building. I think that they do need maybe one more very elite receiver, at least a very solid number two. I think that they were hoping that when they drafted Daimy Brown out of North Carolina, but they do have scary Terry McLaurin on this year so far. He's been targeted 49 times for 29 receptions, 400 yards, averaging 13.8 yards per target, per reception. 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's awesome. He's averaging about 80 yards per game. They did go sign Adam Humphries. He has only been targeted 20 times for 14 receptions, 153 yards. You can see kind of the drop off there. J.D. McKissick, like I talked about earlier, 150 yards, been targeted 18 times, has caught 13 of those and is averaging 11.5. So you can see really the difference between him and Antonio Gibson. Washington football fans would tell you they know the difference. Now, one of the biggest players that I thought was having a very up-and-coming kind of career was tight end Logan Thomas. Unfortunately, he is placed on the IR. But to this point, I'm going to go ahead and give you his stats anyways, because I really like what Logan Thomas is providing as a tight end. He really is kind of starting to burst on the scene. He's been targeted 14 times, 12 receptions, 117 yards, averaging 9.8, and has 2 touchdowns. Now, his replacement actually played for the Kansas City Chiefs for one season, and that was Ricky Seals-Jones. So it'll be interesting to see. Again, another guy that I'm kind of going to pay attention to is Daimy Brown. He's been targeted 14 times, 5 receptions, 51 yards, and has not had a touchdown yet. And also in the offseason, Curtis Samuel was acquired by this Washington football team from the Carolina Panthers. He has been targeted 5 times, 4 receptions, 19 yards, averaging 4.8, and has 0 touchdowns. Curtis Samuel was somebody that probably could have been looked at by the Kansas City Chiefs, but he ended up going to the Washington football team. So that is really kind of how the offense is shaped up. I think that they have the ability to score some points. It just, again, it depends on the approach and how they plan on attacking this Kansas City Chiefs defense. I think we're starting to see a little bit better play from our secondary outside of maybe a Dan Sorensen. I do think the corners are really playing good coverage. Guys, I'm going to mention this every time in a video. It's just incredible to see when you give a NFL quarterback all the time in the world. You give all the time in the world to NFL receivers to be able to run routes. And if those routes don't develop, they have all the time in the world to make things happen. And if a quarterback isn't being pressured, that just is it's just a mess. It really is for a defense. And I think that's kind of why the secondary, specifically the corners, have gotten a bad rap. If there was being pressure applied to these quarterbacks and making them force throws that maybe they weren't necessarily comfortable with, but they forced it, I think this cornerback group would really kind of be praised, honestly. I think that they're doing some fantastic things. I really like what we've really acquired in the cornerback room. We've been playing without Charvarius Ward. He's been hurt. And there's been a lot of guys stepping up. Rashad Fenton is one of my favorite corners that the Kansas City Chiefs have. We actually saw him step up. He actually would have had an interception last week if Frank Clark didn't rough the passer. But Rashad Fenton's been stepping up, and he's finally healthy, coming off concussion protocol. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this Kansas City Chiefs football team kind of approaches their defensive scheme against this Washington football team, who has the ability to run with Antonio Gibson, has the ability to kind of pass it out of the backfield with J.D. McKissick. Taylor Heineke can throw it to all the options I've listed. So it's going to be very interesting. Now, on the other end, I have John Bostic in my fantasy. It's unfortunate he is on the IR. John Bostic is just a leader, man. I mean, I really like what John Bostic does from a linebacker standpoint. He's just a monster, just a smack you in the mouth type of guy. But again, unfortunately, he's going to be on the IR. Outside of that, they have one of the great, in my opinion, one of the best safeties. He hasn't probably played the best for the Washington football team. A lot of their fans and probably people who cover them would say he hasn't been the greatest. So far this year, he's kind of been okay. Would be Landon Collins. I remember when he came over, signed that big contract. I was a huge Landon Collins fan, still am. I just think that there for a long time, that guy was a very feared safety. And just, holy smokes, guy was absolutely phenomenal. Kendall Fuller is coming back to the Washington football team from the Kansas City Chiefs. He will be playing cornerback. I'm not sure who he's actually going to be covering. I'm going to kind of go through, though, some of the guys that they have. I mean, Chase Young, ladies and gentlemen, just an absolute animal, drafted out of Ohio State. They nicknamed him the Predator. Just a mauler, really is. I would expect him probably to line up against, let's see, he'd probably line up against the left tackle, so that's probably going to be Brown. He'll be taking on Chase Young, would be my guess. But guys, they have a lot of good players. They really do. Kendall Fuller's been playing a lot. Bobby McCann, a corner. Cameron Curl's been playing a lot. Jonathan Allen's a pretty solid D tackle. Jamin Davis, great linebacker. Deron Payne. They just really have a lot of guys that have been able to contribute. And this defense was going to be, I know heading into the season, it's still, I think, one of those ones that have been pretty solid to a certain degree. I think that they still have some things to work out, but this is definitely a positive direction, and I think you're starting to see that with this football team. And so that really is kind of the Washington football team breakdown. I'm going to jump in really quick and talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. And, guys, I think we're going to hopefully see a little bit more of Josh Gordon in this game. I'm hoping to see the offense kind of settle down and really kind of develop. We obviously are going to be without Clyde Edwards-Helaire, so Darrell Williams is going to be stepping up as the running back. Tyreek Hill is looking to have a redeemed game where, the ball popped out and Micah Hyde intercepted it and ran it back for a pick six. So I believe, Tyreek Hill is looking to have a game. Travis Kelce is going to continue on his pace. Travis Kelce has been a absolute special entity for this team. Again, Travis Kelce is just that guy. And I love to see it. I love to still see the attitude. He gets out there, chops first downs when he gets them. Just is that guy. And I really enjoy that about Travis Kelce. I hope this offense can establish at least, scoring touchdowns, but also kind of establish the run game. Let Darrell Williams get out there, hopefully incorporate Jerick McKinnon a little bit more. I did a write-up today on the potential of, a Marlon Mack acquisition that's been talked about multiple times. It's not necessarily something that I would hope would happen, but I could see it happening due to depth reasons. They did promote from the practice squad, and I think that's going to be a significant addition. So we're just going to have to see how this is eventually handled. But I did write an article on Marlon Mack acquisition over at SIA Network. Go check it out. But I also talked about really kind of what the expectations are as soon as Clyde Edwards-Helaire goes down with an MCL sprain and goes on the IR, and it's definitely going to be out for at least probably 3 to 4 weeks. I would imagine probably a little bit more, especially with a sprain. So those are kind of my expectations. This defense, I really can't provide you a whole lot just because, guys, it's been rough. It's been rough. They don't apply pressure. Hopefully Chris Jones can play, and maybe they do find a way to incorporate some blitz packages. They didn't even actually start applying really blitzing at all until the third quarter of the Buffalo Bills game. And then we started seeing Josh Allen kind of have to move out of the pocket a little bit more. But it's just been a struggle on defense. And, I think it's more so personnel than anything. So we're just going to have to see how they end up, stepping up. Are they going to be a much better well-rounded defense? Are they going to be able to do different things? Because they've had flashes. I don't want to just completely say this has been just an awful ride. They have had flashes. They actually stopped Buffalo a few times, and that game could have been completely different. But I'm excited to see how this game progresses, and maybe this is the one that turns the page as we continue to start our journey back to 500 and also hopefully back to winning the AFC West. So we will just have to see. I appreciate you guys checking out this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this breakdown. Hopefully you guys can relate to at least what we're going to expect from this game. I think that, it's going to be a great game. My prediction is I from a points perspective, I'm thinking in the 30s for both teams. I do think that there's going to be at least 3 touchdowns, maybe even 4 touchdowns for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think if this defense plays very similar to how it's played on the Chiefs side, I think Washington will score as well. So it'll be interesting to see. But I'm gonna say both teams score in the 30s with a Chiefs win, and we start this rebound. I appreciate you guys checking out this channel. I really do appreciate the support. If you haven't, smash that subscribe button. It helps out tremendously. Smash the like button. It helps get the content out to let people know that I'm making videos on the Kansas City Chiefs and really kind of everything NFL related. And again, I appreciate you checking out the Beat of KC. And as always, have a good day.